Emily never planned to end up in Jason's world that evening. It happened so quickly that she barely had time to understand her own feelings. One moment she was standing in a quiet Seattle cafe, trying to distract herself from another long week, and the next moment she found herself agreeing to visit the home of a man she had known for less than a month, but somehow trusted more than people she had known for years. Jason had walked into her life in a slow, calm way. He didn't push, didn't brag, didn't try to impress her with big words. He was just present. And that presence had made her feel seen again after months of feeling invisible. That evening, when he asked her gently, "Do you want to come by my place? I've been working on something I want to show you." She felt a warm mix of curiosity and nervousness. She didn't know what he wanted to show her. She didn't know what he expected. But something inside her whispered that this was a moment she shouldn't run from. The drive to his apartment was quiet but not uncomfortable. Jason talked about simple things, his favorite books, how he liked the rain, the old vinyl records his father left him. Emily watched him from the passenger seat, surprised by how easy it felt to listen to him. She didn't need to pretend. She didn't need to hide parts of herself. For once, she wasn't tired from trying to be understood. When they reached his building, the sun had already dipped low, leaving the city washed in soft purple light. His place was on the top floor, overlooking the water. He opened the door and stepped aside for her, as if he were inviting her into a space he genuinely cared about. Inside, the apartment felt warm and lived in, but not messy. There were plants near the window, books stacked on a small table, and soft lights glowing in a way that made the whole room feel like a quiet retreat from the world. Emily felt a light breath leave her body, almost like relief. Jason moved with gentle confidence. He set his keys down, took her jacket, and offered her tea without making it a big moment. Everything about him felt simple, honest, grounded. The kind of man who didn't need to fill silence with noise. Emily walked around slowly, taking in the little details of his home, the framed photos, the half-finished art supplies on the side table, the clean scent of eucalyptus. She felt strangely at ease. "You have a beautiful place," she said softly. "Thanks," Jason replied. "I wanted it to feel like a quiet space." "Life gets loud," Emily nodded. She understood that all too well. He prepared tea while she stood by the window, watching the reflections of distant boats on the water. Everything felt peaceful, almost unreal. After months of rushing through life, working long hours, trying to rebuild confidence after a hard breakup, she finally felt her mind slow down. Jason joined her with 2 warm cups. "Sorry, the place is small," he joked lightly. "It's perfect," she said. He smiled at that, one of those genuine smiles that reached the eyes. They talked for a while. Not deep secrets. Not heavy topics, just ordinary things that somehow felt meaningful because of how they looked at each other while speaking. And slowly, the comfortable space between them began to warm with unspoken possibility. Emily felt herself noticing the small things about him, the way he leaned forward when he listened, the way his voice softened when he spoke about things he cared about, the way he seemed slightly nervous around her but tried to hide it. Something gentle formed between them, something that didn't feel rushed or forced, but just as she felt, herself letting go of her worries, just as she began to believe that maybe this moment could mean something. The peace around them cracked. A sudden knock hit the door. Sharp, unexpected, out of place. Emily's shoulders tensed instantly. Jason froze for half a second, then closed his eyes in a way that told her he knew exactly who it was, that he wished the timing had been anything but now. "Everything okay?" Emily asked quietly. Jason nodded, but the hesitation in his expression told her he wasn't thrilled. "They're early," he muttered under his breath. Before she could ask who they were, the knock came again, louder this time, followed by familiar voices calling his name. Jason moved toward the door slowly, as if buying himself a few seconds. Emily stayed near the window, unsure whether she should sit, stand, or hide. The warm, private energy between them suddenly felt fragile. Jason opened the door a few inches, But whoever was outside clearly didn't believe in patience. The door pushed wider, and 3 people stepped into the apartment, laughing and talking over each other. The moment their eyes fell on Emily, everything stopped. The tallest of them, Mark. She would later learn, raised his eyebrows with a playful but surprised grin. The second one, Andrew, looked between Jason and Emily with curiosity. And the third, Sarah, froze for a moment before her face relaxed into a friendly smile. Jason shifted awkwardly, running a hand through his hair. "Guys, you're early." Emily felt the heat rise in her cheeks. She didn't know whether to wave, hide, or disappear. Her quiet evening with Jason had suddenly turned into a scene she hadn't prepared for. Mark nudged Jason with a teasing smirk. "Didn't know you had a date." Emily's breath caught, not because of the words, but because she didn't know what this moment meant for Jason. Would he deny it? Would he brush it off? Jason's jaw tightened in a subtle way, and his voice came out steady but firm. "She's my guest, and you weren't supposed to be here until later." Emily watched him from across the room, noticing the protective tone in his voice. It made her heart warm, despite the awkward situation. Andrew raised both hands. "Our bad. We thought you finished early today." Jason didn't answer. His eyes were on Emily, checking if she was uncomfortable. She wasn't sure what her expression gave away: surprise, confusion, embarrassment. Maybe all of it. Sarah stepped forward gently. "Hi, I'm Sarah. Sorry for barging in." She gave Emily a soft smile that felt sincere. "We didn't mean to interrupt anything." Emily returned the smile, even though her nerves were still buzzing. "It's okay," she said quietly. "I just wasn't expecting company." Jason walked back to her side, not touching her, but standing close enough that she felt shielded from the sudden chaos. He kept glancing at her, silently asking if she was all right. Emily appreciated it more than she could explain. The energy in the room shifted again, this time slower. Calmer, as his friends realized they had walked into an important moment. One they hadn't been invited to, but didn't want to ruin. Mark cleared his throat. "We were going to hang out, but we can come back later." Emily looked at Jason before answering. She didn't want to make him send his friends away. She didn't want to seem fragile or overly sensitive. But she also didn't want the evening to lose the meaning it had started with. Jason leaned down slightly. "You okay with them being here?" he asked quietly. She hesitated, not because she doubted him, but because she didn't want her answer to change whatever was forming between them. "I'm okay," she said at last. "As long as you are." He gave her a soft, grateful look, one that sent a small flutter through her chest. And just like that, Jason's friends stepped fully into the apartment, but with more respect, more awareness. They talked quietly, moved gently, and tried not to disrupt the atmosphere too much. Still, Emily felt the shift. The private space she and Jason shared had widened. The moment wasn't gone. But it wasn't the same either. Jason stayed beside her, clearing his throat once more. "I, didn't plan for this," she smiled. "I know. That's small." Honest exchange held more weight than either of them admitted out loud. And as his friends settled awkwardly into the space, Emily realized something unexpected sometimes. The moments we don't plan reveal the truth faster than the ones we do. And this night, messy and interrupted as it was far from over. The room felt heavier than before, but in a good way. Emily stood beside Jason, unsure how much space to take or whether she should say something. His friends were quiet, clearly aware that they had stumbled into a private moment. Jason's calmness, though, gave her a sense of safety she hadn't expected. He didn't rush to push his friends out, and he didn't let the interruption ruin what had started between them. He just stayed beside her, patient, gentle, protective. His voice broke the quiet. "You two, okay?" he asked softly, glancing at Emily, then at his friends. It was a small question, simple, but the tone carried care. Emily nodded. "I'm fine," she said quietly. "It's all right?" Jason gave her a small smile, almost imperceptible, but it made her chest tighten pleasantly. It was the kind of smile that said, "I see you and I've got you." The friends settled in awkwardly at first. They tried to talk to make the atmosphere lighter. Mark cracked a few jokes about traffic. Andrew asked about Jason's work. And Sarah offered Emily a polite smile, asking if she wanted a drink. Emily accepted tea, feeling the warmth in her hands. It wasn't the intimacy she had anticipated when she first came, but it was still comfortable. She realized that being accepted by Jason's friends mattered more than she had expected. They weren't there to judge or intrude, they were part of his life. And now she was part of it too, in a subtle way. Jason kept checking on her, occasionally glancing at her as she sipped her tea, as if he wanted to make sure she felt at ease. His friends noticed too, and the teasing jokes slowed down. There was a kind of quiet respect in the room now. Emily could feel the tension in her own shoulders easing, the initial embarrassment melting into something warmer. She found herself noticing Jason in ways she hadn't before, the way he moved with calm confidence. How his eyes softened when he looked at her, and the small gestures that were so natural they could be easy to miss. Every glance, every slight smile, every gentle tone of voice made her heart stir. Then Jason stepped toward a small wooden table by the window. Emily noticed the way his hands hovered over something wrapped in brown paper. He cleared his throat, drawing attention, but his voice was quiet, careful. "I wanted to show you something," he said. His friends turned to look, curious but careful not to interrupt. Emily felt her heartbeat pick up. Something about this moment felt significant, even with them there. The room, once noisy and unpredictable, had shifted into a calm anticipation. Emily stepped closer, trying to hide her nervousness. Jason carefully unwrapped the paper. Inside was a small painting, soft and delicate. At first, she didn't understand what she was looking at. The brush strokes were gentle, almost dreamlike. Then she realized it was a scene by the water, calm and quiet, peaceful. There was a woman in the painting, sitting alone, serene, her figure bathed in soft light. Emily's breath caught. There was something familiar about the pose, the feeling. Something in the painting felt personal, intended, meaningful. It wasn't just art. It was a message. Jason's eyes met hers. "I wanted you to see this," he said softly, and Emily noticed the quiet earnestness in his expression. He didn't need to explain. She understood. He had painted it with her in mind, or at least, with her presence in his thoughts. She felt warmth flooding her chest, a mixture of surprise, gratitude, and something deeper, something that made her chest tighten with emotion. This was the man she had started to trust, and now she understood why his friends watched silently. There was a kind of respect in their gaze, a realization that this wasn't just a casual evening. Emily felt a strange sense of pride, not in herself, but in being part of a moment that clearly meant something to Jason. She wanted to tell him how beautiful the painting was, how much it meant, but the words stuck in her throat. Instead, she simply held the painting carefully, feeling the soft weight of it, the gentle texture of the paper. Her eyes met Jason's again, and she saw the vulnerability there. Subtle but unmistakable. Sarah leaned slightly closer, whispering quietly, "He doesn't show this to many people. You must be special." Her words were soft, almost like a secret shared, and Emily felt a shy smile spread across her face. She realized she was blushing. This moment, fragile and tender, was hers and Jason's, and yet shared indirectly with people who mattered to him. It was a quiet affirmation that she belonged here, that she had passed some unspoken test of patience and understanding. Jason reached out briefly. Just a small gesture, brushing a stray strand of hair from Emily's face. It was subtle, careful, and respectful. His touch didn't rush anything, it simply acknowledged her presence, reinforced the connection they had, and reminded her that this evening was more than accidental. Emily felt her heart beat faster, but this time it was a gentle excitement, not the nervous tension from earlier. She realized that she was letting herself feel something she hadn't allowed in months: hope. The friends, sensing the intimacy, settled further back. They didn't leave, but they became background, part of the scenery rather than participants. Emily could focus on Jason without distraction. She noticed the little things, the way his eyes held hers just a moment longer, how he seemed to care about her comfort, and the gentle patience in his movements. Every action felt deliberate but not overbearing. He didn't need grand gestures. Everything he did was quiet, authentic, and meaningful. Emily's mind wandered for a moment, thinking about the events that had led her here. The hard months, the lonely evenings, the doubts about ever trusting someone, again they all felt distant now. Jason's presence, the way he cared without overwhelming, and the tender honesty in his gestures reminded her that connections like this weren't forced. They were earned slowly, gently, and quietly, like water carving a path through stone. She realized she wanted to be present in this fully, without fear. Jason broke the silence again, his voice soft. "I hope you like it," he said, a subtle nervousness hiding behind his calm tone. Emily looked down at the painting, then back at him. Words failed her, so she simply nodded, letting the smile on her face convey what she couldn't speak. "It's beautiful," she said softly. "I don't even know what to say it. Feels like you." Jason's eyes softened further. He didn't need more words. The connection in that moment was strong enough. It wasn't about declarations or promises or rushing things, or was about acknowledgement. He saw her. She felt seen. That simple truth filled the space between them more than words could. His friends, watching quietly, exchanged subtle smiles. They didn't speak, but the atmosphere in the room had shifted. The laughter and chatter from earlier had dissolved, replaced by a calm that was almost sacred. Emily felt honored not just by Jason's gesture, but by the subtle way his friends respected the moment. It gave her a sense of belonging, of understanding that this man's world, his life, his space was not only inviting her in, but letting her be part of something delicate and meaningful. The painting remained in her hands, tangible reminder of the evening. It wasn't just art, it was a symbol of connection, of vulnerability shared without words. Emily turned to Jason, feeling the unspoken question in her chest. What now? How would this night progress? The answer wasn't immediate, but the calm assurance in his eyes told her everything. This evening wasn't about rushing. It was about presence, honesty, and quiet intimacy that didn't require force or spectacle. Time seemed to slow. The friends, realizing the depth of the moment, quietly moved toward the kitchen, chatting softly so as not to intrude. The room, once filled with awkward energy, had transformed into a space of quiet tenderness. Emily could feel her own emotions settling, the initial tension replaced with a warm, slow realization. She wanted to be here. She wanted to see where this connection could go. She wanted to trust again. Jason stepped closer, carefully, giving her space, but maintaining closeness. He didn't speak immediately. Instead, he let the silence stretch just enough for her to process her feelings. Then, softly, he said, "Emily, I hope this isn't the last time you come here." The words were simple, but the weight behind them carried hope, possibility, and promise. Emily felt a smile tug at her lips, a mixture of relief, happiness, and anticipation. "It won't be," she whispered, her voice low but certain. The night stretched on. Conversations resumed, but they were gentle, light, and respectful of the emotional space Jason and Emily now shared. Laughter came back, but it didn't overpower the quiet connection. Emily realized that this was rare, this balance of friendship, love, and care in one room. It was a gift, one that didn't need grand gestures or declarations. It simply existed, fragile and tender, yet unshakable in its truth. By the time the evening wound down, Emily felt a sense of calm she hadn't felt in a long time. Jason's friends left quietly, leaving her and Jason alone. The city lights reflected on the water outside, soft and still. Jason handed her a small cup of tea, and they sat together near the window, watching the lights dance. Words weren't necessary. The silence spoke volumes. They had navigated an unexpected interruption, shared a quiet intimacy, and discovered something new about each other. Emily realized she didn't want to leave, not yet. She didn't want to lose the calm, the connection, the subtle promise that had formed. Jason, sensing this, smiled gently, and the warmth in that smile matched the feeling in her chest. It was a start, a beginning of something slow, tender,